Hello, my name is Akanksha and I welcome you to the second edition of Digital Stories with Roobaroo Walks, wherein we discuss and learn about the places that surround us and the various people associated with them. In this video, we will look at some stories of women who have shaped Delhi's history and landscape in major ways. Before I begin, let me ask you a question. Which of the following monuments in Delhi was commissioned by a woman? The options are A. Humayun's tomb, B. Chandni Chowk, C. Fatehpuri Masjid, and D. Khairul Manazil Mosque. Have you figured it out? Okay, let's see the answer now. It's all of the above. If we used our old history textbooks as the only way of knowing our past, we would probably think that women did not exist in the past, or that if they did, there were very few of them, and they were only good for playing consort to kings and giving birth to their heirs. Thanks to feminist historians, though, we now know that this is not true. They have recovered historical narratives that were previously ignored by the predominantly white male historians of the colonial era. This is why we thought it would be a good idea to focus on some of the iconic women who have shaped Delhi's history in different eras. These are women who had considerable political power that they used to influence the course of history and also left their legacy on the map of Delhi. In this video, we will briefly discuss the stories of 5 such women and visit the landmarks built by them. Okay, so we're in the city of Delhi. Here's the map, and the location is somewhere in the vicinity of the Qutub complex. The person we're talking about is Sultan Razia. Born in 1205, Razia was the daughter of the second Sultan of Delhi, Iltutmish. She would have been all of 6 years old when her father's status changed from that of a slave to that of the Sultan of the Delhi Sultanate. Having emerged from unconventional circumstances himself, Iltutmish did not have any orthodox traditions to maintain. This might be why Razia was trained in the skills of administration, martial arts, and warfare early on, like her brothers. Her abilities impressed her father so much that he left her to administer Delhi when he went for an expedition to Gwalior and eventually chose her as his heir. In doing this, the Sultan overlooked at least 3 of his surviving sons. A woman being chosen to rule is still a rare sight in many places in the world today. Imagine how huge this must have been in the 13th century. Not surprisingly, Iltutmish's decision angered a lot of people in his court, and the nobles decided to ignore these orders to crown Ruknuddin Firoz, the eldest surviving son. But Razia wasn't going to be stopped that easily. Back in the day, anyone who wanted to raise a grievance in front of the king could come dressed in colorful clothes, because people otherwise wore white, so that they could stand out and make their case. So, on the occasion of a Friday prayer at the Quwwatul Islam Mosque in Delhi, Razia went dressed in red, the color of protest. She addressed the congregation and complained about the injustice done to her by her brother and stepmother. The people at the congregation stood up with her, killed Ruknuddin, and put her on the throne. So, in a way, Razia was not only able to raise a popular coup, but also came as close to a democratically elected monarch as one could during that time. To the people, she said that if they found any shortcomings in her as a ruler, they could depose her anytime they wanted. Sultan Razia proved to be a very able ruler who established colleges and libraries, minted coins in her name, proclaimed herself the pillar of woman. Razia shed the veil as soon as she became the ruler. She also moved to abolish the jizya, a tax on non-Muslims, but the court nobles opposed it. She opposed racial prejudice by promoting Yaqut, a slave of African origins, to high ranks, which annoyed the rest of the court and led to several rebellions. The odds were against progressive leaders like Sultan Razia. Her disgruntled nobles conspired and deposed her. However, her short rule of 4 years continues to be celebrated by historians and common folk alike. Her tomb is located near Turkman Gate in Shah Jahanabad. Now, let's see if you can identify this beautiful mosque here. Located across the Purana Killa in Delhi and often mistaken to be part of the fort complex, this is the Khairul Manazil Mosque. Built in the style of the Delhi Sultanate architecture with rubble and plaster, the name of the mosque literally means the most auspicious of houses. What makes this a unique landmark is that it was the first mosque in Delhi to be commissioned by a woman. That woman was Maha Manga, Emperor Akbar's chief wet nurse and a person who commanded significant power in the Mughal court. In fact, she is considered as the de facto regent of the empire from 1560 to 1562, as she acted as political advisor to the emperor. We can also make out her importance from her position as the only woman in this painting and sitting so close to the emperor. Like our previous icon, Sultan Razia, Maha Manga's name on the Khairul Manazil Mosque is proof that mosques may not have been the exclusionary spaces closed to women in medieval India. Some scholars say that these restrictions may have emerged in the more conservative colonial era. Either way, Maha Manga paved the way for a long line of Mughal women to commission mosques. Next up is Begum, who gave us one of the greatest architectural marvels of India. Married to the second Mughal emperor Humayun, Begum became empress at the age of 19. She maintained a powerful stature during both Humayun and Akbar's reign. In 1539, during a battle between Humayun and Sher Shah Suri, Begum, along with her 6-year-old daughter Akika Bibi, were taken prisoners by the latter. Begum was eventually released, but she lost her daughter. Upon Humayun's death in 1556, Begum commissioned a grand mausoleum in her husband's memory, making Humayun's tomb the first grand Mughal architectural marvel, the first Indian garden tomb, and also a monument of love that predates Shah Jahan's Taj Mahal and even served as an inspiration for its design. Begum also went to Mecca for Hajj, following which she came to be known as Haji Begum. She was also as close to Akbar as his biological mother and continued to enjoy an honorable place in his reign. Following Humayun's death, Begum continued to live in Delhi, overseeing the construction of the mausoleum and supporting as many as 500 people through alms. Humayun's tomb is the resting place of both Humayun and Haji Begum, along with approximately 100 other Mughals. Designed by Persian architect Miraq Mirza Ghiyas and his son Sayyid Muhammad, Humayun's tomb is a beautiful amalgamation of elements from Central Asian, Persian, and Rajasthani architecture amongst others. It is located in the heart of Delhi, close to the Nizamuddin Dargah. The next icon on our list shares both historical and geographical proximity to Haji Begum. I am referring to Jahanarabegum, the eldest daughter of Shah Jahan, who was the 5th Mughal emperor and Humayun's great-grandson. It's pretty rare for us to hear about the daughters of kings. Sons had the exclusive claim to the throne, barring just one exception in the case of Sultan Razia. However, despite these limiting circumstances, Jahanarabegum managed to leave a lasting presence on the landscape of Delhi and in its history. After Mumtaz Mahal's death, she became the only woman to hold the distinction of the Padshah Begum or the First Lady of the Mughal Empire without being the emperor's wife, and despite the fact that her father, Shah Jahan, had 3 wives. Because of the immense political power and wealth she had, she has been acknowledged as the most powerful woman in the empire at that time. When Shah Jahan moved the Mughal capital to Delhi and set about building Shah Jahanabad, Jahanarabegum designed the central street in the city called Chandni Chowk, a wide street with arcaded shops. The beautiful street originally had a channel of water running through the middle. Besides this, Jahanara also commissioned 5 buildings in Shah Jahanabad, the most iconic of which was a large caravanserai with beautiful gardens, a canal, summer houses, and exquisite artwork. Jahanara had favored her elder brother Dara Shikoh as Shah Jahan's heir to the throne. However, her younger brother Aurangzeb deposed their father and captured the throne. After Shah Jahan's death in captivity, Aurangzeb eventually pardoned Jahanara and appointed her as the first lady of the empire once again. Jahanara was involved in a lot of charitable work and also became a Sufi. She had her tomb built in the courtyard of Nizamuddin Dargah, where she was buried after her death in 1681. The tomb is simple, made of white marble, and is open to the sky. And finally, we have perhaps one of the most colorful historical entities in this list of iconic women. About her origins, we only know that she was of Kashmiri descent. Named Farzana, she was a dancing girl in a brothel in Chabri Bazaar until the age of 14, which is when she caught the eye of the 45-year-old Walter Reinhard Somber, a European mercenary. Somber married her and she came to be known as Begum Samro, a localization of Somber. Begum Samro accompanied Somber to places like Agra, Deeg, and Bharatpur, where he offered his services to various nobles. It is said that Begum Samro showed great diplomatic prowess early on and helped Somber become close to the then Mughal king Shah Alam II. The couple was awarded the rich principality of Sardhana by the king. Somber died an early death in 1778 and Begum Samru inherited all his wealth and troops. By then, the Mughal emperor had come to prize her astuteness. He sent her to negotiate when the Sikhs, led by Baghel Singh, encamped at Tees Hazari, which, by the way, is called so because the number of Sikh soldiers camping here was purportedly 30,000, known as Tees Hazar in Hindi. Thanks to Begum Samru's awesome skills, the Sikhs agreed to retreat after they were given a monetary sum and permission to build 8 Gurudwaras in Delhi. Begum Samru also drove away the Rohillas who tried to invade Delhi in 1788. In 1781, she converted to Catholicism and was baptized as Joanna Nobilis. Her love life was also pretty legendary, but that is a story for another day. For now, we are interested in a building in Chandni Chowk associated with Begum Samru. This derelict building now houses the Central Bank of India and is known as the Bhagirath Palace, located in the Electrical Market in Chandni Chowk. Why are we talking about it? This sad looking building was originally this sprawling palace built by Begum Samru in the midst of a garden, a canal running behind it. It is a little difficult to reconcile these two images now, but for those of us who know, it is a thrill to walk up to this Haveli and recall the amazing people and stories that it is associated with. Stories like the ones we just discussed prove that there is a need for us to question history as we know it. Is the story we know exclusively about kings and their affairs? Where are the common people? For instance, do we know about the average worker who built the Qutub Minar? What was his life like? How was life as a common woman in Akbar's reign? These questions suggest that there are significant gaps in our historical narratives. One major part that we are now trying to recover is women's history. Do you know of other such women in Delhi's history? I can think of 3 more that we haven't covered yet. Would you like to know their stories too? Let us know in the comments below. That's it for our current feature on the iconic women of Delhi. Thank you and stay tuned for more interesting content.